Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Scott. I'm the Enterprise Editor of The Sun. I'd like to welcome you to our continuing series of lowellsun.com live debates. Tonight we have with us the two candidates who are vying to represent the 22nd Middlesex District, that is the town of Billerica. To my left, your right, is the incumbent seeking a second term. His name is Mark Lombardo. He's a former selectman in the town of Billerica. Welcome, Mark. Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.
And to my right is Jim O'Donnell. Jim O'Donnell's been looking to grab this seat for a couple of elections now. He's a former selectman in the town. And Jim, I'd like to thank you for coming in as well. Thank you. I'd also like to just give you a quick apology. Normally we start these at 5 o'clock. There was just a little snafu with time today on the part of one of the candidates. I will not identify which one. So we're going to try to squeeze everything in 30 minutes. I still think we can do it, and thanks for tuning in. So we'd like to get right underway, and I'll start with Mark. Mark, you've been on Beacon Hill now for one term. You're a Republican in a sea of Democrats. Tell us what you've accomplished, and tell the viewers what you've accomplished in the 2 years you've been there, and then Jim will have an opportunity to respond to that.
Sure. We've accomplished a lot in the last 2 years at Beacon Hill. As a freshman, you come in ready to get to work, and that's what we've done. We've took on a number of reforms in our first term. We took on municipal health care reform, which helped the town of Billerica save $1.5 million annually, and cities and towns around the Commonwealth over $100 million this year. We took an EBT reform when there was fraud and abuse that was being shown through this program that's meant to help families take care of their children and feed them and clothe them. When we saw that these benefits were being used for bail money, for alcohol, for pornography, for tattoos, we took action and took some reform. We took on pension reform that will save billions for the Commonwealth over the next 20 years. We had significant local aid increases. That was one of my pledges as your state rep, that I was going to work to increase local aid. Over my 2 years, we've increased local aid for the town of Billerica by $1.5 million. In addition, we had the Whipple Road Bridge repaired, and the state picked up the tab. We got $150,000 to help the long-promised bike path to the town of Billerica, $17,000 to the Boys and Girls Club, and continued funding for great projects in Billerica, like the Council on Aging and Project Bean. Redistricting was very important. It was able to keep Billerica whole. And we did Melissa's Law. They've been up in Beacon Hill, stuck for years. They'll keep violent offenders behind bars. We accomplished a lot in 2 years.
Thank you, Mark. Jim, your response to the incumbent's accomplishments?
I will say that, you're looking at the Beacon Hill, they did attack quite a few issues out there. I would surely look at some of the issues that were desperately needed over the years that had to be at. Mark picked up on a few things. He talked about local aid, talked about large amounts of local aid, but I think if you really go back and look, it's interesting how local aid rises during election years. I remember Mark and I were obviously on the Board of Selectmen for a number of years, and this year they raided their rainy day account of $335 million to offset the build up their budget to pass on local aid. There isn't a state rep or state senator on the state that hasn't got local aid. My issues I have is the same issues that Lowell Sun did on July 3rd, is that they're concerned that next year the local aid won't be there. And I'm hoping Mark will tonight promise that we have the same amount next year, because it won't be an election year if he's reelected. Because I tell you, you can't make that promise up there. Because right away, it's announced yesterday, and I say this, is if I was a state representative now, I would be meeting with the town manager, I'd be meeting with the superintendent of the schools, because the revenue is flat. You people reported it. There's now a hiring freeze at the state. So when you look at local aid, it's nice. I'd accept it. I'd take it. I think it's great, Mark. I should. You're looking at EBT, totally agree with them. It needed reform. I look at that. It's a shame in one of the EBT reforms he didn't vote when it was coming up, when there was a change in it. He missed that vote. I look at the ideas of we talked reform in the the courts with the probation we talked earlier before we were on there. I don't think it went far enough. I think they screwed part of it. It should have been taken totally out of that and put it into the Department of Public Safety.
Let me interrupt you here for a minute. If you had to assign a grade to Mr. Lombardo's first term, what would that grade be in terms of taking care of issues and helping the town over?
I'd say Mark would probably be, I'd say B minus.
That's a pretty good grade. Mark, your response?
I think
from an opponent, I'll take a B all day long.
But I think that's. But again, I think there's a lot of things that he hasn't done.
Okay,
there's a
why
lot
don't you
of
elaborate on that?
Well, I think first of all, elaborate first. It's been in the paper. It's been well known that that to get anything done, to work together, in my election and my candidacy now, I say good things happen when people work together. All right, I don't see that. I go to town hall now. I look at what has happened. I look at the earmarks that Mark put in. 2 years ago, we sat in this room. Mark and I both agreed earmarks are not the way to go. It's interesting they put $30 million worth of earmarks in without even the town manager knowing it. And town manager went before the FinCom committee and said, actually, that act could also destroy that. He went out and fought for $21 million for the, which is one of our biggest projects, which is the Middlesex Turnpike, which has been going on well over 20 years, with the last part of it not to be funded. We were funded when Mark was first on the board, elected to the House. That funding was then transferred to another area. Luckily, John Curran, using political ties in the past, took the money went down to the Metropolitan Planning Commission, had that reinstated, so the money, the $21 million, is sitting there. His concern is it may be moved again.
Okay, hold on for 1 minute. Mark, is there a communication problem, as Mr. O'Donnell was insinuating between you and
There
Town
are
Hall?
two good issues to talk about here, about communications, and then let's talk on the Middlesex Turnpike. My opponent has been mentioning about issues with the Board of Selectmen and the town manager, and I meet with the town manager regularly and the Board of Selectmen. Let me read some emails from the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Bob Carenti, in response to a pothole on 3A. Thanks, Mark. You're the man. Appreciate your responsiveness. Bob Carenti from April. Bob Carenti, after I helped him with his company, Random Inc., get a DOR issue resolved. Mark, thanks again for all your efforts. From Selectman Gagliardi, responding to an issue for a Commission on Disability. Mark, thank you for your help. And told me the next day about how happy he was with my quick response. Information about storms and the local aid with the town manager. And this was a great one, too, from the Council on Aging. And when I was advocating on their behalf because we're working with them and understanding their needs. And they say, Mark, we're fortunate to have a state representative that truly understands the vital work done by the Council on Aging. So this tells me that we have a great relationship with the town boards and members, and I think that this story is being fabricated.
It tells me you came prepared because you knew the issue was going to come up.
No doubt, I always do my homework. And let's talk about the Middlesex Turnpike. This is a great issue because
30 seconds.
I met with the Secretary of Transportation, Mullen, with Senator Donnelly, and a bipartisan effort on site to tell him how important this project was. After we met with him, that project was put back on the MPO's planning. My opponent sat on the Tri-Town Committee for 15 years, and the Middlesex project never got done under his watch. And not only that, he let the projects get contracts for Burlington and Bedford without securing any reassurance that Billerica would be taken care of in the same order. So it's kind of hypocritical for someone who served for 15 years in that committee to try to blame me, who's been there for 2 years, and I, with Senator Donnelly, got that back on the MPO. Okay. So those are the facts of the matter.
Okay. Jim, you can respond to that, then we're going to change gears here.
Response quickly. I'll read from Evan Lips's here. Town Manager John Curran said Monday he had no inkling now. State Representative Mark Lombardo was planning to submit amendments to last week's $1.5 billion transportation bond. That sounds like great communication, huh? No inkling. Including $14 million to redesign the traffic pattern in the center, which hadn't even been approved yet, and $19 million for a launch of Middlesex Turnpike. He had no inkling of that. Mark talks about my 15 years on that. I totally agree. It was there. Understandably, most of that time was on there. Two things were happening. They were designing it at the first part. It was always going to be down, if he knew this, it was always going to be 3 phases. It was divided into 2 phases, and he knows it because I mentioned it to him, that there's 2 planning agencies. There's NIMCOG up in this area, and there's also the Metropolitan Planning Commission. They divided it up. The money from that came from that. So it wasn't I was stalling it. If anything, we had environmental issues and still do, that we worked, because constantly the state government kept pushing and pushing the bar further. That was the issue.
Quick response.
Well, again, spending 15 years on the board and not getting the project done. I've been up there for 18 months. I was able to get the project on the MPO planning. That sounds like success versus failure. So I'm happy with what I've done in the Middlesex Turnpike. And we're going to work to make sure that gets funded. The challenge is it's in the Metropolitan Planning Office out of Boston, not in NIMCOG. We're going to continue to work with Senator Donnelly to get that done.
All right, we're going to change gears here just for a minute. Jim, I'd like to talk about your political status. You're running as an independent.
Yes.
Most state reps and state senators run as either a Democrat or there's a few out there as a Republican. Tell me why you're an independent and what you hope to accomplish as an independent.
Well, obviously, I'd like to accomplish more than what Mark has. All right, and no disrespect.
Well, sure, but give us some specifics on
specifics.
that.
I think as an independent, you have the ability to work on both sides of the aisle.
Mhm.
I have no, my issue to go down here is to work to get the most I can for our community, the most I can for the district and that. As an independent, you have the ability to, caucus with who you want to caucus with, for the most part of it, what you're going to get out of the community. Independents are coming in more and more. There are more. There's 2 running for state senator up in the Havel area. You look at up in Maine,
Yes.
you're an independent U.S. senator running. So it's an issue that more and more. Bill Ricker alone has 26,000 registered voters,
Mhm.
right? Well over 16,000 closely are independents. So that tells you something, that people want that independent part of it. And what I hear is they want the issue and not the party. And then that's the way I broke away from the Democratic Party.
Why did you break away from the
The
Democratic
way I broke away from the Democratic Party is very simple. And we just mentioned it earlier before we started, is that I had the ability to, when it came down to a friend of mine who was running in a state election, he was a Republican.
Mhm.
As a Democrat in the part of the Democratic town committee, I could not support him. I didn't think that was right. So I broke away feeling that, it came down to the person and what the person stands for and not what the party stands for.
Mhm.
I respect both parties.
Okay.
I think both parties bring a lot to the table. I think the Republican Party brings a lot to the table, as well as I think what Mark has talked about tonight, a lot of the accomplishments, those are Democratic ideas. Those are our Democratic ideas when it comes to reforms and some of the issues out there.
So who do you think you'll caucus with?
I'll caucus, to be honest with you, with the one I'm going to get the most back from Bill Ricker.
Okay.
That's well known.
Can you name any independents in the state legislature right now?
I don't believe there is one, Mark, I'll tell you that. I don't think there is.
The last unenrolled to be elected to the House was Willie the Chief Lantigua, and he's no longer with the legislature. He's
Okay.
in Lawrence.
All right, let's move on to another issue, and I'm going to ask a question of Mr. O'Donnell, and you can respond, Mark. This is your 3rd campaign now for state rep, right? So you obviously want the seat pretty badly. You campaigned 3 times. The Sun recently reported in a story by Evan Lips that you went awry of state campaign finance laws by not properly filling out who donated money to your campaign.
That's incorrect.
We had a similar situation with another state rep. Can you respond to that, please?
Sure, I can. I'll actually show you examples. That's incorrect, to be honest with you, Chris. What has happened is that if you go by the campaign financing committee, I'll just show you from 2 years ago when the 3 of us were in, Mr. Conway, myself, and Mark. The way it's set up, what is it, Office of Campaign Financing,
Yes.
right? When you fill out a form, obviously your treasurer fills out a form. These are the 2 right here from primary going into where we would be right now.
Mhm.
All right? But what happens is when you put a donation for $50 or less into that, and you put it in, it does not show up. It goes down as, you're going to look at it here, an unitemized receipt. Most of my fundraiser, and I have it here tonight, if you look when I started off with, was a $20, suggested coming in. A lot of my receipts were under $50, $50 or less. Those were recorded, but they don't show up in this. And unfortunately, if you look at the party that sent the email, which I never received a copy of the email, I received it from an inquiry from the newspaper, and went right to that. It's amazing because 2 years ago, and I don't want to, obviously take time because we don't have enough time because unfortunately, Mark was late. But you're looking at 57, 58% of Mr. Conway's was unitemized because that means it's $50 left. Mine was approximately the same amount. If you look at drawn from people that aren't $400 or $500 donations, I don't have the state Republican Party give me $1,000. I don't have some of the big businesses that, the Empire Recycling down at $300. I don't have issues out there. I have a lot of small donations that have come in.
Okay. Mark, you can respond to that.
Yeah,
Apparently you received some large donations according to your...
I'm very happy
channel.
to the donations that I get from the people of the market. I don't get the union money that my opponents got some union money and traditionally other parties get. I don't get the union money. I get money from the people of Boulder that support me. But here's the critical issue of what you're talking about. This is about transparency. And as state rep, you're supposed to be a leader, and you're supposed to lead the charge of how you campaign is how you can be as a leader. We've been very transparent with our campaign. We believe the people of Boulder deserve to know who's funding our campaign. Jim O'Donnell has run 3 times now. He knows the rules, and every year he's run, he's reported less and less of his money. More and more has become itemized, almost 58%. That blows out the state average. So this is a matter of transparency, and the people of Board will decide. But I know that transparency is important as a representative and as a leader. You campaign the way that you're going to lead, and I believe in transparency.
He claims he didn't break any laws. What do you think?
I'm not sure that he did, but I'm not sure that's the issue here. The issue is about transparency. And if you're going to have 60% of your money undisclosed, then you as a leader need to know I'm not sure the people of Billerica are going to think that this looks good. Let's disclose some more money so people know who's funding the campaign. It's about leadership and making the right decisions.
Yep.
Look at it. It's been itemized, it's there. Obviously, Mark didn't understand what I just said. You put in $50, it doesn't get here. It goes into an itemized ledger. It's the problem. It's not the issue. The issue is that, the people are trying to make an issue out of something that are there. I mean, he talks transparency. I'll talk transparency. If you look at some of his donations from the businesses, he puts the business address from Billerica down, not their home address. So it looks like Billerica residents are supporting his campaign. You look at the Empire. No, the gentleman owns Empire. You have him down as Billerica Sterling Road, not to where he lives. You look at the dentist that donated to you. You look at the Billerica address, not to where they live outside. So gladly you say, oh, gee, I got a lot of people in Billerica supporting me. You're using their business address.
Well, it sounds like he has an issue with transparency on your part. How do you respond to that?
My records have been wide open. They have been. I have an accountant that runs my finances. We follow the rules. I'm happy to release 100% of my finance records to anybody. This is a transparency, letting the people know who.
But
who
as
our campaigns.
Mr. O'Donnell claims, are you doing something different with the addresses there to indicate that the donor is from Billerica when they're actually not?
Certainly not that I'm aware. And when we get a donation, we ask people for their name, address, phone number, emails. We send some emails about the campaign, and then we report it as we're supposed to.
Okay, all right. We're going to move along a little bit quickly here because time is moving fast as well. Mark, give me your top 3 goals if you're re-elected.
Increase local aid. Continue to fight for local aid for the town of Billerica. That's been number 1 foremost. 2, hold down taxes. It's already clear that the legislature wants to raise taxes next year. There's been rumors of an income tax hike, rumors of gas hike. I will tell you unequivocally today, I will not support any tax hike on the people of Billerica, and I challenge my opponent to do the same. And thirdly, jobs and the economy. Massachusetts is not where it needs to be. The United States is not where it needs to be. We need to clean up the regulatory burdens in Massachusetts. We need to make business less expensive. And we need to create a business environment that's going to bring jobs, get families back to work. Over 200,000 residents of Massachusetts are still out of work. We've got to do something about that. Passed a jobs bill this year. Good first step. There's more that we can do, and that's going to be my priority.
Chris, I totally support what he's saying, that we don't need any more taxes. It's a shame that some of his actions of his bills, didn't actually lower the burden that was some of the cost in the residents.
Can you specifically
Sure,
identify
I'll
one
give you
of
a
those
bill right
bills?
here. It's a health care bill. Supporters say the landmark bill would save $150 billion over the next 15 years, provide savings billions of dollars for consumers and small businesses. They noted that it would improve the quality of care and increase the transparency and accountability of the state and entire health care. Mr. Lombardo voted no. There's an opportunity now to start cutting some of the costs, reeling in some of the charges on health care. He voted no for it.
Okay,
All
hold
right?
on. You can come back with 2 more goals, but Mark, please respond to
This
that.
is a great issue. In fact, this bill that Mr. O'Donnell mentioned was called by Representative Maselli, a Democrat, and all of his 30-some-odd years up in Beacon Hill, one of the worst bills he's ever seen. 240 pages, released the night before, not even 24 hours for
They
Representative.
do that often up there, don't they?
They do that office. The Boston Business Journal called this health care bill Soviet style. Moody's reported that as a result of this bill that was passing, it is reducing the credit rating of all Massachusetts hospitals. It was redistributing wealth. It was putting a $225 million tax on our hospitals, including Leahy Clinic, that Billerica residents use. We are punishing hospitals that have financial success and great outcomes for their patients, taxing them and redistributing it to hospitals that are underperforming. That's not the type of healthcare I support.
I'm impressed because your papers come out and endorse that bill. So I don't know maybe they see something that Mark hasn't seen. Maybe you should sit down with your editorial board, because right now they came out and they said, while they agree with Mr. Maselli, the legislation is far from perfect, it still addresses some of the major causes and spiraling costs. Maybe not in his world, but in the world that people have to pay insurance. And the other thing,
What were some of those costs? What are some of the good things?
excuse me,
in the
we
bill
don't
that
have
you
enough
think is
time. We
good?
haven't been here. We missed a half
2 more
hour.
goals. 2 more
All
goals.
right. The other thing, goals, I think communications is a huge goal. Despite what Mark says, if you sit there and you go right now and you talk to him, as Mark, I want to know right now, have you gone to the town manager in the school department and sat there and said, hey, listen, our revenues are flat, be prepared that we may not have the same local aid next year. Have you done that? Because it's in the paper.
Go ahead, Mark.
Your revenues,
We haven't even got to a point where they're adjusting projected revenues. We're holding at consensus revenue. There is reasonable belief that there's going to be an uptick in as the year goes on,
Mhm.
according to State House News, according to the administration. So there's no need to flag right now. We're not doing nice cut. I mean, this is a nice campaign issue to say that, oh, he hasn't told the superintendent. I'll tell you, I talk to the town manager regularly, board of selectmen, superintendent. I have a good
Okay,
relationship.
all right, we've discussed the communication issue, so let's go one more goal.
One more goal?
Yeah, you've given us two.
I think you gotta bring money, as Mark said, we've gotta work on money for infrastructure. Despite what he's saying, I says, another goal I said is we just out, the bike path's a terrific idea. It's a shame they didn't sit down first with other people. It's a shame that as we worked together, for 5 years, he was on the bike path committee, not once did he bring it up in the board of selectmen. We talked about it. Gets it needs a legacy, is brought out in the paper, right? My legacy is right out there in the thing is my son. I want to make sure when I look at this community, we bring as much as we can into this community, whether it's increasing, I look at one goal that he didn't have. One goal was we could cut electricity. He voted against the bill that was going to cut and curtail electricity for the common people out there.
Okay. To be fair, Mark.
Yeah, that's false. See, I read the bill. That's the difference here. That bill was going to absolutely raise the rates of electricity on residents of the Commonwealth. It was forcing the energy provider to buy the energy from the Cape Wind project. It was going to raise rates. I will not support anything that's going to be a tax increase or a fee increase on the people of the Commonwealth. Will not do it.
Jim, is that true?
If you look at this, obviously, you look at the supporters they said the bill would make several changes to bring costs down and called it a jobs bill that would allow Massachusetts companies to hire more employees and reduce the cost. And we never got the jobs. Because I'd like to ask Mark, when we talk about the whole Turnpike idea, right? Have you met? You talk about meeting with the transportation. What about your contacts with, when it comes to economic development along the Middlesex Turnpike? You talk about that. I spent 15 years on an economic development committee. We brought hotels. Your aid is out there. We brought hotels to this community. We brought businesses to this community, that development committee. What have you got planned for the economic development? Have you sat and met with the regional director of the economic development, MOBS?
Okay, Mark.
When it comes to the Middlesex Turnpike,
I think we've already been here, but go ahead.
I have too. I've met with the Secretary of Transportation. There's no one higher in the state that you can meet with.
I'm not talking transportation. I'm talking jobs.
I've worked
with
with them
businesses
to tell how important this project is.
Hold on.
Okay? So we've moved the bar there. We're working on job plans up at Beacon Hill all the time. Now, I think Mr. O'Donnell wants to interfere local issues into state issues. The local board of selectmen and the assessor, who was a supporter of his, have been working on issues of economic development in the town. I support them. I was on the Route 3 committee that was set up on the corridor of Route 3. They met 2 weeks ago. Well, I think we'll also cover the story. I was there as a supporter of economic development in this area.
Okay. Let's move on to a few quick issues, okay?
Sure.
Ballot questions, okay, gentlemen? Medical marijuana, yes or no?
No. The
Just briefly up.
Mass Medical Society is against it. Massachusetts teens are already 30% higher than the national average on marijuana use, and reports out of California, 70% of their youth are getting prescriptions, and it's filled and riddled with the ability for fraud.
Thank you, Mark. Jim?
Yes, I look at. I have two examples, and I use these.
Yes. You're in favor of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I right away take a quickly. There's a woman named Karen Hawks that lives up in Raleigh. She's a state police officer, retired now. Right? Came down with struck with a stroke. Right? Pills left and right. All of a sudden, she turned to marijuana. Right? She's got off the medication off. Half of the prescribed medications, opiates. Right? In a sad note, today, right? A year ago today, I had an uncle that passed away of cancer. And I will tell you, watching what he went through and watching the abilities that if he had that option of being able to use marijuana, I think that now the problem that people have out there can be changed if this passes. Can be changed if the legislature stands up and has it.
Thank you. Assisted suicide.
I oppose that. Again, Mass Medical Society is against it. This bill's riddled with flaws. No psychological evaluations are required. Families aren't required to be notified. Any doctor can prescribe this life-ending, including a podiatrist or a dermatologist. And what it does is it's actually promoting and legalizing fraud of life insurance companies, because the reason of death would be the illness, not suicide.
Thank you, Mark. Jim?
I support it. I look at it now. Who am I to say that somebody is in a position that should stay with in that position, not be able to make a decision. Despite again what Mark is saying, I think there surely are checkpoints where you can.
If you read the bill, I think the key here is no matter how the district votes, I will support the district, my district.
Your opportunity to ask one question of the incumbent.
Sure.
Make it quick.
Make it quick, Mark. Tomorrow night. All right?
Very, very quick.
Okay. First of all, did you support the Parker School override?
I voted in favor of it.
You voted, okay. Because I was looking back there in 2009, as you were chairman of the Board of Selectmen, you said it was going to go down in flames. Next thing you tweeted, when you were at the last, facilities thing, you said it's a terrific thing. Tomorrow night they're going to be proposing probably $100 million may come down to it. Would you support a debt exclusion not only as if they pass it, but beforehand, would you support the debt exclusion of $100 million?
Again, we're talking about local issues versus state issues.
I'm asking you as a resident.
As a state representative, that's not an issue I'm going to vote for. If the superintendent comes to me and says that this is our plan and it passes in the will of the voter, I'll do everything I can to make sure that MSB funding is put in place.
One question to your challenge, and then we'll wrap up with closing statements.
Sure.
Okay?
Jim, you were on the Middlesex Turnpike Committee for 15 years,
Yes.
and the project didn't get done. You're on the Housing Authority, and a third of your units aren't handicap accessible. And I get calls from seniors all the time because they can't get housing and handicap accessible housing. And you are the truancy officer for the town,
Yes.
and you say we need more substance abuse funding. Yet we've had over $40 million in free cash over the last 10 years, and you put in none for it. So my question for you is, why don't you ever finish anything that you start?
Oh, it's interesting, Mark. You say that. First of all, you talked to Mike. I never brought it up. I enjoy that. Start what? Where do you want to start? Do you want to start in Middlesex Turnpike again? Again, I'll tell you, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, which you are a member of committees, we worked on that. We went through up to have this point, and it was stalled. Second of all, you bring up the Housing Authority, right? We have an acute problem with not enough senior housing, not enough veteran housing, and not enough housing for family housing, right? What I did was, as soon as I got elected to the mayor, and I'm chairman now, first thing I did is something he hasn't done. I brought the board together. I brought the Board of Selectmen together. We worked, first time it's happened, to now form the Berkeley Municipal Trust, Housing Trust. That is now going forward, trying to push forward for housing. I brought up to him about the digital school. He had no idea about the digital school. I was using it, right?
Okay. All right. Now it's your opportunity to make a closing statement, which is press for time.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I thank you. I thank Mark for finally showing up. I thank, obviously the opportunity here, and I want to talk to the voters.
1 minute. 1 minute.
Thank you.
Yep.
November 6th, you have a choice. You have a choice that somebody wants to work with people, somebody has a track record, despite what you may have heard, that, over the years, I've been able to work with other individuals to get things done. Whether it's sewer projects, whether it's opening the West Berkeley Fire Station, which takes it on, whether it's now you're looking at the housing, we're going forward, which we've never done before, looking at other facilities in the last 20 years. I looked in now, despite what you might hear, there is a communication gap out there. I promise the day I'm elected, the next day, I will meet with the town manager, meet with the superintendent, and ask the Board of Selectmen, and ask the school committee to go before them, what are their problems out there? What do they need down in Beacon Hill besides just, as Marcus talked about, just local aid? What other issues are pressing out there? Those are the things I think I want to bring to this is your campaign. This isn't my campaign. As I said at the beginning of this show, is that if we work together, terrific things are going to happen. And I do believe that it's shown that in the past. I promise that it's going to happen again.
Thank you, Jim. Mark, your turn.
Thank you. I want to thank the voters of Billerica for allowing me to be your state representative for the last 2 years. It's been one of the biggest honors of my life. I've done a great job of listening and working with the residents and being there when critical matters hit their family. Donna and Dick Howe are some residents of Billerica that came to me when their child was in desperate need of some medical care. As a state representative, I was there to help them to get this critical need. Donna came to me recently and said, Mark, you helped save my son's life. We helped honor John Giasulo, Billerica resident, who got the Silver Star for his bravery in the Middle East. We brought him to the State House to make sure he received the honor that he deserved. Helping the residents of Billerica is what I love to do, as well as keeping the economy strong for you, trying to build jobs, create a business environment that we can get people back to work, keeping taxes down, and I've delivered on my promise to bring more local aid back to Billerica. I hope to do that for another 2 years and be a strong voice for the taxpayers of Billerica. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. It was a spirited 30 minutes. I want to thank the candidates, Mark Lombardo, Republican of Billerica, and Jim O'Donnell, Independent of Billerica. I'd like to urge you to tune back in tomorrow night. We'll take our show on the road to the new Tewksbury High School for 2 debates featuring Jim Maselli, Democrat of Wilmington, and Tewksbury Republican Doug Sears, followed by State Rep Barry Feingold of Andover and State Representative Paul Adams, who's vying for that Senate seat. That begins at 7 p.m. tomorrow evening. Thank you very much, and good